You hear that? That's not a bomb under your chair, sweetheart. That's your mind cracking. Not breaking from weakness, no, cracking from pressure. From too many thoughts shoved into too small a space. You've been stacking ideas, regrets, dreams, fears, all of it, into that little skull of yours like a hoarder with nowhere else to go. And now, now the walls are pulsing. The wires are frayed. The lights are flickering and something is about to give. All right, let's take a walk through the mind. Not the fluffy daydreaming version you use to scroll and smile politely. No, the real one. The locked up basement with walls that whisper. The one that smiles when you're crying and laughs when you fail, because deep down it knew. It always knew. You've been trained to obey, to sit still and nod at the right times. School, home, screens, everywhere they taught you not to think too much, not to ask why the ceiling feels like it's getting lower every year, why the noise in your head gets louder when everyone goes quiet. They called it discipline, structure, normal. They dressed the cage in flowers, handed you a rule book, and dared you to call it freedom. But the mind, it obeys. It bends, adjusts, shapes itself to survive. You told it, don't cry, and it swallowed oceans. You told it, be nice, and it hid the rage in your teeth. You told it, they won't understand, and it sealed the door shut with a smile. You don't even know how much you've buried, do you? Thoughts that used to dance are now shackled. Desires that once roared are now whispered. Because if you dare let them out, it might get messy, right? But here's the trick. The more you compress, the closer you get to detonation. It's not poetry. It's not art. It's a bomb. Your mind isn't broken. It's just done playing pretend. Every time you swallow your truth, every time you nod instead of scream, you're adding pressure to the fault line. And the shaking you feel in your chest at 3 a.m., that's not anxiety. That's the lock cracking. People walk around like glass thinking they're steel. They call breakdowns phases, call madness a sickness, but never realize it's the most honest part of themselves trying to crawl out. Because in madness, you don't obey. In madness, you don't smile unless it's real. In madness, you don't lie to keep others comfortable. You just burn. You burn down the lies, the masks, the shoulds and musts. And what's left? The original version of you, untouched by guilt, untamed by shame. But they don't want that. Oh no, they want you to stay calm. Calm is marketable. Calm pays taxes. Calm fills the office cubicles. Calm dies on time. But there's a part of you that's not calm. It's wild-eyed. It remembers what they made you forget. It remembers the moment you first wanted to scream and didn't. The moment you wanted to walk away and stayed. The moment you knew something was wrong but smiled anyway. That part has been waiting, quietly, impatiently. And now, it's starting to stir. You feel it when you sit too long in silence. You feel it when someone lies to your face and you smile instead of snapping. You feel it in the fake laugh, in the dry eyes, in the forced small talk. It's not fatigue, it's resistance. The real you pushing against the walls, because the mind obeys until it doesn't. Until it decides enough is enough. Until it flips the switch and floods the room with everything you were too scared to say. They always told you to stay balanced, didn't they? Keep it together, they said. Walk the line. Think logically. Don't get too high, don't fall too low. Just enough emotion to look human, but not enough to scare anyone. And you listened. Of course you did, because balance is respectable. Balance is admirable. But let me tell you something they won't. Balance is boring. Balance is safe. Balance is a muzzle dressed in gold. The people who change things, really change things, are the ones who tip the scale so hard the whole table flips. But they won't tell you that. They'll sell you meditation apps, therapy scripts, 5-step morning routines. They'll say, center yourself, like you're some fragile little compass that can't face true north unless you're quiet and compliant. But have you ever looked at someone truly alive? Someone pulsing with purpose? They don't look balanced. They look possessed. They laugh too loud. They cry at inconvenient moments. They walk into rooms like hurricanes, and everyone either wants to be them or get away from them. Because when you stop aiming for balance, you become dangerous. You become unpredictable. You become real. And the world hates real. Real exposes the mask. Real reminds people of the lies they tell themselves every day. So they'll try to bring you back. They'll guilt you with phrases like, you've changed, or you're being dramatic. But all that really means is you're finally not playing the part they assigned you. You're rewriting the script mid-scene, and they can't stand the improv. See, balance is just fear wearing a tie. It's control pretending to be wisdom. They don't want you fired up because fire spreads. They don't want you to cry because tears are contagious. They don't want you to scream because someone might hear and start screaming too. So they convince you that balance is healthy, that fire is bad, that chaos is a disease. But the truth is, nothing new comes from calm waters. Nothing is born from stillness except stagnation. You weren't meant to be still. You weren't designed to sit quietly while your soul rots from the inside out. You were meant to stir something, to shake the table, to throw the whole damn dinner off the ledge if it meant finally tasting something real. The people who worship balance will never know what it means to feel something so deeply. It changes their biology. They'll never wake up drenched in purpose. They'll never stay up all night chasing an idea that doesn't make sense but refuses to let them go. They'll never understand why some people would rather be burned alive by passion than die numb in a padded room made of routine. You want truth? Real truth? Then unbalance yourself. Lean too far. Risk falling. Because that's where you find what you're really made of. Not in the center, but in the edge. In the tilt. In the teetering. Everyone's looking for the middle. But you're not like them. You hear the whispers at the cliff's edge, and instead of stepping back, you lean forward. You wonder what it would feel like to fly, even if it means falling. You're not afraid to break the rhythm, because you know that sometimes it's not about keeping it together. Sometimes it's about letting it all fall apart just to see what's real enough to survive the wreckage. And in that moment, when everything's off kilter and the world says, this isn't normal, you finally understand that normal was the lie all along. They told you to stay focused, didn't they? Eyes on the prize. Vision boards, goal lists, timelines. Step 1, step 2, step 3. One foot in front of the other like a good little soldier. Marching toward what? A desk job, a mortgage, a handshake at retirement, and a plaque with your name misspelled. They call it ambition. I call it hypnosis. Because you're not focused, you're programmed. And somewhere deep down, you know it. You feel it when the alarm clock screams and your body rebels. You feel it when you're staring at that same wall, pretending it's progress. You feel it when the dream you once had starts to taste like paper soaked in old coffee. Focus is a cage when it's locked onto the wrong thing. They don't teach you that in school, though. No, in school they reward you for sitting still, for coloring inside the lines, for memorizing answers instead of asking better questions. And by the time you're old enough to know better, the leash is already wrapped around your neck and they call it purpose. But if your purpose feels like a prison, maybe, just maybe, it was never yours to begin with. You're told to follow your dreams, but only if those dreams fit neatly into a spreadsheet. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a cog in the great machine. But don't dream of fire. Don't dream of noise. Don't dream of dancing in the middle of the street because you're finally alive and don't care who sees it. Those dreams are dangerous. Those dreams make the world nervous because they can't be predicted, controlled, taxed, sold. What if your focus isn't broken, just bored? What if the reason you can't stay locked in is because the thing you're locked into isn't worth your soul? What if the real problem isn't distraction, it's starvation? Starved of meaning, of madness, of something that makes your bones shake with electricity. They say you have ADHD, burnout, brain fog. No, you're just not meant to worship mediocrity. You're meant to hunt lightning. Let them keep their neat little rows of daily tasks. Let them count steps and calories and seconds wasted. Let them call you reckless while they scroll through life with their eyes glazed and their hearts mute. Let them mock you for chasing what doesn't make sense, because the truth is, sense is the first thing you lose when you finally start waking up. And you've started waking up. You don't need more focus. You need something worth focusing on. Something that grips you by the ribs and refuses to let go. Something that keeps you up at night, not from anxiety, but from obsession. Something that makes your friends worry because you can't stop talking about it. That's not unhealthy. That's not a problem to fix. That's the signal. That's the pulse. That's the call. So burn the checklist. Lose the 5-year plan. Forget the productivity hacks. You're not a machine. You're not a brand. You're not a walking LinkedIn profile. You're a storm looking for a sky loud enough to shatter. And when you find it, you won't need discipline. You won't need a vision board. You'll be pulled by something older than logic and louder than fear. You'll find your focus not by forcing it, but by finally unleashing it. Emotions. That wild cocktail no one really learns how to swallow. You're told to manage them, control them, tidy them up into neat little compartments. Be happy, not too happy. Be sad, but quietly. Be angry, but only when it's socially acceptable and never too loud. But what happens when that dam cracks? When the pressure builds and the smile starts twitching and your hands won't stop shaking? They say you're unstable. They say you're overreacting. They say you're weak. But maybe, just maybe, you're finally alive. You weren't born with a manual, were you? No one popped out of the womb with a flowchart on how to handle betrayal, abandonment, heartbreak, guilt. They didn't give you a panic button for when the world collapses and everyone else just keeps scrolling. They didn't teach you what to do when the people who were supposed to love you became the architects of your trauma. So you did what you had to do. You buried it. Deep. Real deep. Under jokes, under fake smiles, under late nights and louder music. You learned to function while bleeding. But let me tell you something they never will. Emotions aren't flaws. They're sirens. They're warnings. They're war drums. That anxiety gnawing at your ribs? That's not weakness. That's your body trying to scream through your silence. That rage that erupts without warning. That's grief dressed in armor. That's sadness that shows up uninvited. That's your soul refusing to go numb just to fit in. You weren't meant to be flatlined emotionally. You were built to erupt. People love to label what they don't understand. Oh, you're too sensitive, you're dramatic, you're intense, you feel too much. They act like it's a crime. But the real danger, feeling nothing, numbness, now that's the real pandemic. Walk through the streets and count the empty eyes. Hear the hollow laughter. Everyone's smiling, but no one's breathing. They forgot how. Because breathing means feeling, and feeling means dealing, and healing. Well, that's messy, so go ahead. Cry like a thunderstorm. Scream until the mirror cracks. Write letters you'll never send. Punch pillows. Rip paper. Laugh at funerals. Dance after heartbreak. Feel it all. Let it wreck you. Let it wash over you like a flood. Because every tear you shed is an exorcism. Every sob is a rebellion. Every time your voice shakes and you speak anyway, you're taking back territory from the monsters that told you to stay small. This world doesn't need more people who have their emotions under control. It needs more people who faced the fire and didn't let it burn them hollow. It needs more souls who aren't afraid to feel, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's ugly, especially then. You think you're broken because you cry during commercials? Because you shake before big decisions? Because your heart breaks in advance for things that haven't even happened yet? No, that's not broken. That's art. That's depth. That's you refusing to let the world turn you to stone. You want to survive? Feel. You want to grow? Feel. You want to heal? Feel. Let it hit you. Let it slam into your chest like a freight train. Don't run. Don't hide. Don't swallow it. Spit it out. Scream it out. Paint it. Write it. Dance it. Bleed it onto a canvas if you have to. But don't ignore it. Don't medicate it into silence unless you absolutely have to. Because your emotions are not enemies. They are messengers sent to show you where the wounds are still open and where the light is trying to get in. Rules, schedules, expectations. They hand you this invisible checklist the moment you open your eyes to this lovely little circus. Be polite, be normal, be productive. Wear this, talk like that, sit straight, walk faster, breathe quieter. Don't ask too many questions, especially the real ones. Play the part. Hit your cues. Don't improvise. Because if you do, well, that makes people uncomfortable. And no one likes to feel uncomfortable, do they? But guess what? Greatness doesn't grow in comfort. It doesn't bloom in silence. It doesn't knock politely on your door with flowers and apologies. No. It crashes through your window at 3 a.m., barefoot and bleeding, whispering, "You ready or not?" And most people, they run. They hide under their routines, behind their excuses, inside their carefully curated personas. Because the truth demands chaos before clarity. It strips you bare, rips the curtains off your stage, and asks you to perform without a mask. Ever notice how the world claps for rebels once they're dead? Oh, they hated them alive. Too loud, too weird, too different, too much. But once they're 6 feet under, they get murals, documentaries, t-shirts. Funny, huh? It's safer to worship courage than to live it. Safer to quote revolutionaries than become one. Because stepping out of the line means becoming a target. And most people would rather be invisible than be criticized. Rather be average than misunderstood. Rather die quiet than live loud. But what if I told you the cage you're in doesn't even have a lock? What if I told you that the box you've been stuffed into, the one labeled with all your flaws, wasn't made for you? It was made to contain you. What if I told you they fear what they can't predict, and that includes you at your full capacity? You think you're too much? No. You've just been around people too small. You think you're behind? No. You've just been measuring yourself with someone else's crooked ruler. And here's the twist. Everything you were shamed for is probably your superpower. Too emotional. That's empathy. Too intense. That's passion. Too quiet. That's observation. Too loud. That's observation. Too loud. That's truth. They call it rebellion. I call it remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Before the edits. Before the filters. Before the costume changes. You weren't born to fit in. You were designed to disturb the peace. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. Because if nobody shakes the table, the plates keep piling up with poison. The lies keep getting served as truth. The mediocrity keeps getting dressed up as success. Someone's got to stand up mid-meal and flip the whole thing over. Might as well be you. Yeah, it's messy. Yeah, it's lonely. But you weren't made for the shallow end. You weren't made to sip tea and nod politely while your soul screams into a void. You weren't made to trade your voice for validation, your dreams for safety, your fire for applause. So burn the script. Tear it up. Rewrite it in blood if you have to. Show up raw. Show up real. Show up with your flaws hanging out like war medals. Let them gasp. Let them gossip. Let them go. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand yourself. You don't need permission to shine. You just need the guts to stop dimming. And you don't need to fit in when you were born to flip the whole system inside out. Let them call it chaos. You'll know it's freedom. Let them call it failure. You'll know it's the first step. Let them walk away. You'll know they were never meant to stay. This life, this wild, unpredictable, savage thing we call existence, it doesn't reward the obedient. It rewards the brave. The ones who say, I'm not here to decorate your expectations. I'm here to detonate them. The ones who show up uninvited and take up space like they were always meant to. The ones who realize that playing small is the biggest betrayal of all. Oh, they love the dreamers. Until they start dreaming too loud. Until the whisper turns into a roar. Until that glint in your eye stops being cute and starts making people nervous. That's when the world sharpens its knives, paints targets on your back, and tells you to tone it down, sit back down, be realistic. Realistic. That filthy little word used to shrink galaxies into parking spots. They want you to chase your dreams, sure, as long as your dreams don't make them question their cages. And here's the joke. They'll cheer for the success, but they'll mock the grind. They'll repost the highlight reel, but they'll ghost you during the blooper reels. They want the polished version of you, the safe one, the smile without teeth version. Because the real you, the hungry, bloody-knuckled, restless soul who doesn't sleep until the stars are close enough to grab, that version scares them. That version exposes their own laziness. That version reminds them they quit when things got uncomfortable. But you didn't quit. You didn't fold. You didn't water yourself down just to fit into their fragile little teacups. You shattered the damn table. You stopped asking for permission. You realized that the crown wasn't going to be handed to you. You had to forge it. With fire. With pain. With patience that bordered on madness. And while they laughed, you listened to the silence between the insults. You turned their doubt into fuel. You built your empire out of the bricks they threw. See, the problem is, they think comfort is success. They think avoiding failure means they're winning. But here's the truth. If you're not failing, you're not even trying. If you're not scared, you're not growing. And if you're not getting under somebody's skin, you're not being bold enough. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to be safe. You're here to stir the pot, shake the system, twist the script into something that sounds like you. And oh, how they hate it when someone refuses to play their game. When someone rips off the uniform, spits out the rules, and says, "Watch me build something out of nothing." They hate it because deep down they wanted to do it too, but they blinked. They settled. They sold out for a steady paycheck, a fake smile, a comfortable death. You chose chaos. Not because you're reckless, but because you're awake. Because you know this world doesn't hand you purpose. You claw it out of the dirt. They called you stubborn, but it was really just vision. They said you were delusional, but it was just clarity they couldn't handle. You kept showing up again and again, even when the applause was silence and the spotlight was a flickering candle in a storm. You stitched your path from pieces of rejection and dared to keep walking, not toward applause, not toward fame, but toward impact, toward freedom, toward the version of yourself that doesn't flinch in the mirror. And they'll say you changed. Of course you did. You had to. Growth doesn't come dressed in comfort. It arrives in ash and sweat and scars that whisper, you made it through this too. You didn't survive just to play it safe. You didn't sacrifice just to sit still. You came to drag the sun down from the sky and make it bow to your will. You came to wake the sleepers, shake the dreamless, slap the fake smiles off hollow faces. The throne was never empty. It was waiting for someone mad enough, someone hungry enough, someone who didn't need approval, just a pulse and a purpose, someone who laughs when they say it's impossible, someone who doesn't knock on the door but kicks it in and says, I'm here now and I'm not leaving.